Republican Party Chairman Jim Walsh here for our weekly Chairman's Update. A lot has happened in the last week since I talked to you last. We did get the results in, are getting the results in for our state primary here in Washington. Tuesday, August 6th was Election Day, and in a 100% mail-in ballot state, the results have been trickling in the last several days after the 6th. One of the key points I've made in talking with the mainstream media here in Washington in the days after the primary election is we do want to try to get back to in-person same-day voting in Washington. For a number of years now, Washington has been an all mail-in ballot state, and we simply believe that getting back to at least a hybrid system, and at best a focus on in-person same-day voting, will be more transparent and more trustworthy for voters than our current system. Although some people do like the convenience of mail-in voting, I suspect the most realistic approach would be to allow some kind of hybrid system where people could vote by absentee ballot if they choose, but the focus, we hope, would be on in-person, same-day voting, and that's the direction we'd like to go. Those kind of reforms to how we vote in this state will take some time, probably will have to be done in several steps, maybe involving several pieces of legislation or several initiatives. But for now, we are dealing with the reality in front of us, and that is we are an all mail-in ballot state. What we saw in our state primary was not a lot of big surprises. Most of the results did conform with what we'd seen in polling that had been done, in modeling that the state Republican Party had done, and most importantly, in word of mouth that we'd gotten from our field staff, from our canvassers, from people knocking on doors and going to local events in support of candidates that we were backing. So no big surprises. Of the about 17 races that we endorsed or supported coming out of our state convention several months ago in Spokane, most advanced to the general election in our state's open top two primary, where the top two vote getters, regardless of party affiliation, proceed to the November general election. Only 2 or 3 of our endorsed candidates did not advance, so most did. The early endorsements that we made as a state party earlier this spring has remained slightly controversial, and those controversies may continue. But all in all, well over 80%, better than 3/4 of our candidates, and really closer to 90% of our candidates advanced to the general. Of course, a lot of attention was paid to the governor's race and that primary, and that was, as usual, a very crowded primary, some 28 or so candidates on the ballot. The top 2 vote getters on the Republican side, it was the former sheriff and congressman Dave Reichert, and on the Democrat side, it was the current state attorney general, Bob Ferguson. So it looks like it'll be Reichert and Ferguson facing off in the general in November. Some of the other statewide races of note, the race for the next state attorney general was a very positive one. Our endorsed candidate, Pete Serrano, actually won that primary. He had several Democrat opponents in the primary. So he will face off against the second place finisher, former U.S. attorney by the name of Nick Brown out of Seattle, a very Seattle-centric kind of progressive candidate. So Serrano looks to have a good jump coming out of the primary in his race for state attorney general. Very interesting, in the race for the commissioner of public lands, it's possible still that we may see 2 Republicans advance to the general election in November. The first place finisher was the former Congress member Jamie Herrera Butler, but the real race for Commissioner of Public Lands is for second place, where the endorsed Republican, Sue Kiel Peterson, is in a neck-and-neck race with a progressive Democrat, Dave Upthegrove. And it isn't clear yet which of those two will finish in second place and advance to the general election in November. It would be great if Sue Keel Peterson can squeak that one out, and then we would have two Republicans in the general election for Commissioner of Public Lands. That is the person who's in charge of the state's Department of Natural Resources, which manages public timberland that has been mismanaged for several decades. It would be great to get a common sense conservative person in there who would more effectively manage, yes, harvest timber from public timberland and get that system of forest management and non-tax revenue going to the state and local governments back working well again after decades of neglect. Some of the other races, our endorsed candidate for Secretary of State, Dale Whitaker, will proceed to the general election. Our endorsed candidate for state auditor, Matt Hawkins, will advance. And promisingly, too, our endorsed candidate for school superintendent, the superintendent of public instruction, David Olson, performed very well in a very heated three-way race. He got second place and is in a good position to sort of peel off some of the support from the third candidate who did not advance. So Olson is in pretty good shape in that school superintendent race, I think, to get elected in November. A couple of the other races statewide that are of note, the race for insurance commissioner, normally one that doesn't get a lot of attention, but our insurance commissioner in Washington is elected on the same cycle as the governor and lieutenant governor and the others, looks to be promising. Current state senator Phil Fortunato, the Republican, did pretty well there and is in a position to be very competitive for that insurance commissioner spot come November. In some of the congressional races of note, of course, the state party endorsed congressional candidate Joe Kent, running in the state's 3rd congressional district, did well, will advance to the general, where it'll be a rematch. He will face the incumbent Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, and we definitely like Joe Kent's chances in that race this November. And the race to replace the great Kathy McMorris Rogers in the congressional district out in the Spokane area looks like Michael Baumgardner, the former state senator, is going to be the winner in that one and would be the favorite to replace Kathy McMorris Rogers in Congress for the Spokane area. And lastly, in the 4th congressional district, which is central Washington, so Yakima, Tri-Cities, and those areas, it looks like it's going to be the state party endorsed candidate Jared Sessler versus the incumbent Dan Newhouse. That was the race that Tiffany Smiley, a very popular politician in Washington, jumped into kind of late, but Smiley did not get enough traction. Looks like she will not be clearing the primary, so it will be Sessler and Newhouse in November for that race. On the legislative front, a couple of surprises, generally speaking, in several contested primaries, again, crowded primaries with multiple people running, some more conservative candidates seem to have gotten through the primary, and so it's going to be an interesting race for the legislative seats come November. Our goal is to pick up at least a few seats in the legislature, both in the House and the state Senate, and certainly not give up any seats, because we are flirting dangerously with giving the progressive tax suspended Democrats supermajorities, something we don't want to do in Olympia. So promising there. I think we'll pick up some ground in the legislature. A couple of interesting races statewide, and certainly everyone's going to be watching that 3rd congressional Congress race in Southwest Washington, where we really want to see Joe Kent get elected to Congress. That's kind of a recap. There's so much more to talk about, and I will in the coming weeks. Really, our work is just beginning here at the state party, as now we know who the candidates are in these various races. And between now and November 5th, we are all going to be focused on organizing, getting out the vote, persuading those who can be persuaded, and making sure that we harvest the ballots of good, common sense conservative voters to fix what's broken in Washington. I'll talk with you more about the November elections coming up, but for now, be well and stay strong. Have a great week.